Next episode, episode 30, will be the finale to NB85. Let's just set the scene. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. The feature of episode 30, mate, is going to be our conversation that we had very recently with the one and only Bill Hazen, who called over 50 of the Chicago Bulls games during Jordan's rookie season in 84-85. We were almost gobsmacked listening to some of his stories. Won't say much more other than the fact that if there's ever going to be a must-listen episode, it'll be episode 30 of this series to close it out.
If there's ever an episode to listen to, it's the last one. Talk about an untapped resource of information about the Bulls' 1984-85 season. That is Bill Brazen Hazen.
I always like to say that Michael got to play with me for a year at North Carolina. I think it really helped him.
Spectacular player from the beginning.
You can see right away Jordan was going to be a big-time scorer.
And showed what an impact he was going to have on the league.
This is NB85. Celebrating the 30-year anniversary of Michael Jordan's rookie season in the NBA. And now, your hosts, Adam Ryan and Aaron Steen.
Welcome back to another episode of NB85, Aaron. We're up to the penultimate episode of the series. How are you today, mate?
Good, mate. You mentioned the word penultimate episode of the series. Emphasis on the word ultimate.
Oh, that's true. Regular listeners, welcome back to the show as always. If you're new to the show, thanks for joining us. There's no follow-up or trivia because we basically didn't have any trivia on offer since about episode 3 of the series. So we'll just move straight into the episode itself, shall we?
It was that good in episode 3 that we didn't need to bother with any more for the rest of the series.
True. And stay tuned as well towards the end of this episode. We might float news of a possible successor to NB85. First of all, mate, what we might do is go through the news of this period of time, and then we'll actually get into the NBA final series itself. The period of time that we're chatting about today, mate, covers from the 23rd of May, which was the first day after the conference finals concluded, until the 9th of June, which was the last day of the NBA final series. The May 25 edition of the Chicago Tribune detailed John Hot Rod Williams' signing with the USBL team, the Rhode Island Gulls. The ex-Tulane player who was involved in a point-shaving scandal signed a $15,000 contract with the Gulls.
Good year financially for Hot Rod. He had the $15,000 contract with the Rhode Island Gulls and also did the point shaving.
Yeah, it wasn't a great season for him. Bit of a car crash.
Nice.
In that same day's paper, Julius, the Dr. Erving, said he couldn't see himself playing more than one further season. He would actually retire after the 87 season when his 76ers were eliminated by the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the playoffs.
The NBA's 84-85 season where prophecies never happened.
And also, mate, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, rumours of his impending retirement were short-lived because he actually played through to the end of 1989.
On May 26th, Jerry Krause waddled into his first stumbling block in the shape of 7-2 Jawann Oldham and his contract renegotiation. Oldham had a team option year on his contract, which pays him $175,000. And he viewed that and Krause's extension offer of between $205,000 and $255,000 over the next 3 years to be embarrassing. Oldham said it's the first time he's negotiated with a GM who tried to demean him. Jawann was after an offer in the vicinity of $300,000 per season, which still put him below a number of other backup centers in the NBA, so maybe he had a right to be insulted by Krause's perceived lowball offer. Crumbs was off to an endearing start to his tenure as GM for the Bulls.
I think we're both of the opinion, mate, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Jawann Oldham's offensive game, not up to par in terms of what he was probably asking for, but I think as a defensive player, he was definitely very warranted to be asking for that sort of coin, given it wasn't actually above even mid-level players for centres.
Yeah, and unpolished diamond. Actually, the word diamond has some kind of luster to it, and his offensive game had no luster to it. But his defensive play was incredible. He was one of those guys that the opposition would have had it in the back of their mind that he was on the court at the time, so they would have thought twice about taking it to the hoop on him.
He just needed some more regular minutes, as we were talking about off air. Off air, apparently we're a broadcast network. Keep going, sorry.
After a year of operating in the black, the NBA was talking of expansion with cities such as Miami, Tampa, Minnesota, Toronto, and Vancouver all inquiring about franchises. Now, in my opinion, Canada is a big country, Reeves, and it was good to see them mention some 10 years before they would actually get franchises.
Great call with a big country. I'm not quite familiar with the layout of Canada, so I might have to go online, mate. Go back to the 1997 Yahoo search engine and I'll ask Jeeves. Now, talking about those names actually that you just floated, Miami, Tampa, Minnesota, Toronto, Vancouver. So Tampa were the only ones that actually weren't awarded a franchise in the either late 80s or into the mid 90s.
Or ever.
That would have been probably even easier to say. Good job. May the 28th was another low point for the Bulls franchise as they fired coach Kevin Loughery. The first name mentioned as a possible replacement was ultimately the man who led the Bulls into the 1986 campaign, Stan Albeck. Now the second name floated, none other than Phil Jackson. Interestingly, the Zen Master helped put together a file on CBA talent for Jerry Krause in the weeks after Jerry's rise to Bulls VP of Operations. In other coaching news, the same day, 76ers coach Billy Cunningham resigned. The following day, May 29, Don Chaney was named head coach of the LA Clippers. He was an interim coach to close out the 85 season after the Clips sent Jimmy Lynam packing.
On May 29th, Bernie Lincecum wrote, Krause's answers sound like bull.
I love the wordplay. He did it and some of the other Bulls writers throughout the entire season. And thanks should be said, as we do often say, the Chicago Tribune archives have been absolutely fantastic for this series.
Without them, there would be no series. Threadbare, you might like to say. Old Mother Hubbard would definitely be going to the cupboard and it would be bare. Jerry Krause swore, not literally, but swore to reporters that he hadn't spoken to anyone else about the Bulls' head coaching role, making him either a fool or a fraud, said Bernie. I searched my soul, said Jerry, of the process of deciding on the next Bulls coach. He professed to have spent 5 weeks determining Kevin Loughery's future without so much of a thought on who would make the ideal replacement.
In that same article, it goes on to say that they walked in on Jerry Krause watching a VHS copy of Pinocchio at the time he was actually saying these quotes.
It'd need to have been a big office to fit that nose in.
I can't really say much about people's noses because I've got a fair-sized honker.
Several Tribune articles were critical of the amount of time the Bulls took to fire Loughery, a move that pretty much everyone knew was coming.
Now, that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect Jerry. We say it with, well, it's probably not respectful the way I just did say it, but it does say here that almost everyone knew the coaching change was going to take place, and yet he's professed to have spent 5 weeks unsure of what actually was ultimately a pretty much done deal to replace him.
Liar, liar, short stubby pants on fire.
Oh, goodness me. We alluded to this before, mate, but on June the 3rd, David Stern told the New York Times there'd be the possibility of NBA expansion starting in the 87-88 season, and the possible location of teams included most of the ones we already talked about, but this time Miami, Minneapolis, Charlotte, North Carolina, Toronto, and Santa Ana, California.
So Tampa, Florida got the chop already off the original list.
Only from about a week earlier.
Yeah.
Larry Bird was also named the NBA's most valuable player on the 3rd of June, and this was incredibly the legend's second of what would be 3 consecutive MVP awards. On June the 5th, news came to hand about the Bulls' Quintin Dailey. He met with officials from the LA Clippers, including the GM and coach Don Chaney. Now, depending on how the 85 draft played out, there was the possibility that the Clippers would send the Bulls James Donaldson in return for Quintin Dailey. Now, Q would end up playing with the Clips, but signed as a free agent early in the 1987 season. Michael Jordan won the Schick Pivotal Player Award on June 6. He edged out Larry Bird.
Try saying that fast 10 times.
Exactly right. I can't say it once. According to the Tribune, it's, and I quote, a computer rating of the player most valuable to his team, end quote.
On June 6, one of the major investors in Jerry Reinsdorf's syndicate to purchase the Bulls, Nick Gladys, pulled out after losing confidence in the way that Reinsdorf was running the team after his friend Kevin Loughery was fired. He said Jerry Reinsdorf never asked for his experienced advice and made decisions without consulting other people. He also had reservations on Jerry Krause's ability to run/waddle a team as general manager. As you mentioned earlier, Adam, Stan Albeck and Phil Jackson were favourites to get Kevin Loughery's job. Also mentioned in the article were Jerry Sloan, Jimmy Rogers, and Dick Harder. It's amazing the amount of guys who are connected to the Bulls in articles about possibly joining the team who didn't, but eventually did years down the track. Three names that come to mind were Phil Jackson, Jimmy Jackson, Rogers, and Ronnie McRae.
Oh, goodness me. Big country and now Jimmy Jackson. So I like the way you're thinking with this episode, mate.
On June 7th, Jerry Krause's omission of David Greenwood's recent surgery on both ankles upset an NBA owner in exploratory trade talks for the Bulls forward.
What surgery?
Johnson went under the knife 2 weeks after losing to Milwaukee in the first round. Krause had made it clear to any teams wishing to contact them regarding a trade that MJ, Orlando, and the Lunch Ladies were all untouchables.
Untouchables. Yeah, but the thing is, though, I actually read somewhere else, allegedly Jordan was even one of the players on the table, not the actual operating table, but on the table for a possible trade if the price was right.
Lucky for MJ, he wasn't on the lunch table.
Hashtag Ian Turpie. Yeah, exactly right, mate.
With the 1985 draft drawing closer, there was talk of the Bulls drafting future Bull Bill Wennington, Terry Porter, or future Bull Sam Vincent.
It's incredible, isn't it? Not just the coaching/executive side of things. Future players that would play on the Bulls getting referenced many years ahead of when they actually may have taken place.
Now, this is reported by the media, so you're not sure about how accurate it is, but say Krause and Reinsdorf were both fans of Wennington and Sam Vincent. Like, you wonder if that original affection that they have for them as players is part of the reason why they eventually got picked up by the team. They initially liked them that much that they had the opportunity down the track, so they picked them up. That may have even happened with Q and the LA Clippers.
Great call. Further backed up by Jerry Krause's fondness for the Croatian sensation, Tony Kukoc, who didn't join the team until about 4 years after they had initial interest in actually selecting him in the draft.
1985 finals.
This was a rematch of the 84 championship series where the Celtics won in 7 games. And as we've discussed right through this NB85 series, LA and Boston seemed almost predestined to meet again. Is predestined even a word? On the game's grandest stage. Now, the Celtics were aiming to become the first team since 1968 and 69 to win back-to-back championships. That late 1960s franchise was the Boston Celtics. By virtue of a 63-19 regular season, the Celtics had home court advantage throughout the 85 finals, and the Lakers finished just one game behind, 62-20. Both were number 1 seeds in their respective conferences. The championship series commenced May 27 and wrapped up on June the 9th in LA. The Lakers won the title 4-2 with a 111-100 victory at Boston in Game 6. Game 1 is famously referred to as the Memorial Day Massacre. Boston at home trounced the Lakers by 34 points, 148-114. The Celtics were up 30 at the half. Now for the Celtics, Scott Wedman was incredible. He had 26 points and he hit 11 of 11 from the field, a precursor to John Paxson in the 1991 finals, including 4 of 4 from long range. So Wedman was on fire. The Celtics set numerous then records for most points and most points in one half, to name just a few.
Almost as impressive as the Memorial Day Massacre win by the Celtics is the fact that the Lakers were able to recover from a devastating Game 1 loss in Boston Garden like that and win the series.
I believe the reason this became known as the Memorial Day Massacre is only because of a scheduling conflict. The IndyCar racing Indianapolis 500 was happening on the Sunday, which was the day before Memorial Day, but the NBA and CBS decided to have the game played on the Monday.
Wow. Hence
the name it actually ended up having, and we know some 30 years later. A little bit of minutiae there for the fans.
NB85, where minutiae happens.
That's right.
The story of Game 2 was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who put on a clinic for the ages. After a disappointing Game 1, where he finished with just 12 points and 3 rebounds, he torched Boston for 30 points, including 16 in the fourth quarter, 17 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 block shots. The victory meant that the Lakers returned to California with a home court advantage.
What an incredible stat line, turning around from Game 1. And this guy's 38 years old at this stage. Remarkable. Game 3 was a very physical encounter, with the Lakers thumping the Celtics by 25 points, so a bit of a seesawing series the first 3 games. There were numerous on-court fracas. Twice the benches cleared. Kareem had 26 points, 14 boards, 7 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks. Goodness me. The Lakers took a 2-1 series lead.
The old boy recovered from the slow game one, didn't he?
He did indeed.
Game 4 was a classic. The Celtics, effectively facing a must-win contest, were led by an incredible Larry Bird fourth quarter performance. Aside from scoring 8 straight points, pulling down keyboards and grabbing a number of steals, Danny Ainge hit 2 clutch jumpers to keep the Celtics close. The Celtics won the game at the buzzer after Bird, who was double-teamed, passed to a wide-open Dennis Johnson 20 feet from the basket. Swish, game over, series tied at 2-all.
I'd like to thank that hoon that drove past your house there, mate, for revving the absolute living suitcase out of their engine as I went past.
It's a lovely, balmy spring evening here in Melbourne tonight, so I've got the front door open, unfortunately.
And you've got a bird in the background. I'm not sure if it's a Larry Bird fan or a Rory Sparrow fan. It adds a bit of charm, anyhow, hearing the bird chirping in the background. Appropriately, we're chatting about the Boston Celtics.
Yeah. If the BS report can have telephones ringing and
Lawnmower Man
in the background, then NB85 can have it too, I think.
How's this for a tidbit, mate? The Chicago Tribune printed that the Lakers flew DePaul Sr., Tyrone Corbin, to LA, where he met with the LA front office before taking in Game 4 at the Forum. I thought that was quite interesting, dare I say.
Yeah.
Now, the Lakers won the pivotal Game 5, their last at home, a contest that featured a cavalcade of stupendous stat lines. Try and say that 10 times fast. Most of which were Lakers players. Now have a listen to some of these. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or as I like to say in some episodes, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had 36 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists and 3 blocks. The Magic Man went for 26 points and 17 assists, if you don't mind. Big Game James, Worthy that is, had 33 points and 8 rebounds. And I recently watched extended highlights of this game, and I must note that Kurt Rambis's hustle was absolutely paramount in this game. Jeez, I'm going with some of the big words today, aren't I? For Boston...
Impressive.
Yeah, hello to Paul. Dennis Johnson managed 22 points and also dialed up 17 dimes.
Game 6 returned to Boston Garden, and the Lakers closed out the series with a convincing 111-100 victory. Kareem had another huge game with 29 points and 7 rebounds. Worthy added 28 points, and Magic finished with a triple-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 14 assists. Rambis just missed a double-double with 9 points and 10 rebounds. Kevin McHale had a monster game, 32 and 16, whilst Bird dropped 28 points and 10 rebounds. Now, remember too, Larry was suffering with floating bone chips in his right elbow throughout the NBA Finals.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was named the 1985 Finals MVP. You'll understand why when I recap some key stats from the series in just a moment. This was Kareem's 15th... You absolute goose. That's funny. That's very funny.
I did it literally about 3 minutes ago. I just scrolled down and put that in.
Well played. I wonder if any of that will make it into the episode. To spoil the illusion for our listener, we of course have to have a rundown of what we're going to be talking about, and we do have a sheet that we refer to, mate. It's a working Google document that we have a habit of sometimes modifying before the other person gets to, so you've stitched me up an absolute treat with that as I went to reel off some stats. Much appreciated. Okay, now it wasn't Kareem's 15th Finals MVP. It was actually his second Finals MVP. His first in 1971 as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks, just his second NBA season.
Amazingly, this was only the second time in 17 finals appearances that the Celtics had lost a series.
That is a great statistic. Now for the Lakers, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar averaged 25.7 points, 9 rebounds, 5.2 assists and 1.5 blocks a game. James Worthy had 23.7 points a game. Magic Johnson had 18.3 points, 6.8 boards, 14 assists and 2.2 steals a contest. And Byron Scott averaged better than 10 points per game. The best contributor off the bench for the Lakers was Michael Cooper, who averaged just over 10 points and almost 4 assists per game.
For the losing Boston Celtics, Kevin McHale had a monster series, 26 points, 10.7 rebounds, and just under 2 blocks per game. Larry Legend, the 85 NBA MVP, finished with 23.8 points, 8.8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.8 steals per game, which I guess if you compare them to his regular season numbers were actually quite a bit down, weren't they?
He actually took the responsibility for the Celtics' loss, saying that he usually makes the shots that he was actually missing throughout a majority of the series, even though they're pretty impressive numbers, to say the least, in a losing team.
Robert the Chief Parrish, 17.2 points and 9 rebounds per game on the series. DJ, 16 points and 9.5 assists. And Kevin Danny McAngel, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals per game.
Wow.
And the best contributor off the bench for the Celtics was Scott Wedman with 9 points and 3 rebounds per game.
For the last time this series, mate, the individual highs for this NBA Finals series, Kareem led all scorers with 36 points in Game 5. Kareem also took the cake in relation to rebounds. He had 17 rebounds in Game 2 at Boston. And in terms of assists, the Johnsons, Magic and Dennis were equal leaders with 17 assists, and that happened in Game 5. So there you go, mate. That's a recap of the 85 finals. The Lakers came through 4-2. That rhymed. Next episode, episode 30, will be the finale to NB85. Quite a sad day for us when that comes to pass.
And the basketball world.
And the basketball world, for sure. Let's just set the scene. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. The feature of episode 30, mate, is going to be our conversation that we had very recently with the one and only Bill Hazen, who called over 50 of the Chicago Bulls games during Jordan's rookie season in 84-85 for a combination of either the Bulls TV network or Sports Vision, who are effectively one and the same. We were almost gobsmacked listening to some of his stories. Won't say much more other than the fact that if there's ever going to be a must-listen episode, it'll be episode 30 of this series to close it out.
If there's ever an episode to listen to, it's the last one. Talk about an untapped resource of information about the Bulls 1984-85 season. That is Bill Brazen Hazen.
And what a fantastic guy. We chatted to him for the best part of 2 hours.
Yeah.
Everything relating to this 1984-85 season, all those sound bites are going to be part of episode 30. However, fear not. The entire conversation will be part of the In All Airness podcast, mate, and that'll be released in the not-too-distant future as well. Really great conversation that we could not let anything go. It'll have to be part of the overall show going forwards.
NB85-30 will be an absolute ripper, probably our finest.
With a touch of salt water welling up in my eyes, Julian Lennon, this is the end of episode 29. Anything you'd like to add, mate, before we tie a bow on this episode?
Don't fear, NB85 fans. As I mentioned earlier on in the series, we're very excited to announce that we've already started production on the NB86 series, which will cover the Chicago Bulls 1985-86 NBA season. So we've already started our research on that and are very excited to bring that to you all.
And, mate, we've already uncovered quite a few bits and pieces that were almost forgotten to the annals of basketball history. Look forward to launching the NB86 series in the not-too-distant future. We are a rock revolving around a golden sun. We are a million children rolled into one.
Yes, Adam, we are a rock revolving around the golden sun. We are a million children rolled into one. In the words of Julian Lennon, salt water wells in my eyes.
You've completely stolen my joke and run with it as your sign-off. Well played. That was fun.
I, however, can be followed on Twitter at GiddyUp.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter at inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.